Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Golden Bachelorette Chock Chapple's special Chock-O-Noodle recipe. Golden Bachelorette suitor Chock Chapple charmed Joan Vassos on night one when he showed up with some of his famous soup. When he got out of the limo, he had a jar of it with him. She drank some and said she loved it. What was even better was his name for the chicken noodle soup. He called it Chock-O-Noodle. Now, Chock is sharing that special recipe with fans. Keep reading to see his video and get the recipe to make at home. Chock Chapple shares famous soup recipe in video. Chock Chapple wanted to make a good first impression on Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos. He remembered her saying she made the best chicken noodle soup. She even made a video of how she does it to share with her fans a year ago. So, since Joan supposedly makes a mean chicken noodle soup, Chock decided to share his own Chock-O-Noodle with her when he met her outside the mansion. He brought it in a jar and had her take a drink. She seemed to like it and fans loved that he did that for her. Now, he's sharing that recipe. On Instagram and TikTok, Chock shared how he makes his soup. The soup looks delicious, as does his jar and shirt. He had a label made for the jar that resembles a Campbell's soup can, but instead of their brand name, he has it listed as Chapple's Chock-O-Noodle soup. He has the same label design on his shirt as well. Fans commented how good the soup looked and said they can't wait to make some while watching the Golden Bachelorette. Some fans noted they would be making it during the cool fall days. The recipe for Chock's soup. Chock Chapple did share the written recipe along with his video. His caption read, "My famous Chock-O-Noodle recipe. 4 tablespoons butter, 1 small onion, diced 4 stalk celery, diced 3 carrots, diced 4 cloves garlic, minced 1 quart chicken stock, 1 quart vegetable stock, 1 jalapeno pepper optional, diced small 1 teaspoon fresh thyme, chopped 2.5 pounds diced chicken, 8 ounces egg noodles, heat butter in a large pot over medium heat, saute all veggies until tender. Add chicken broth, vegetable broth, and egg noodles. Bring to a boil, then simmer for 10 minutes. Add chicken, season with salt if necessary." Will you be making Chock's soup during the chilly fall days coming up? What do you think of Wichita, Kansas native Chock Chapple so far? Is he a good fit for Joan? The charming and charismatic Chock Chapple, a standout contestant from the Golden Bachelorette, had already won hearts with his humor and quick wit. But there was something else about him that took the world by storm: his culinary skills. It wasn't a flashy dish like lobster or a decadent dessert that made Chock a fan favorite. It was his humble yet irresistible Chock-O-Noodle recipe. As the story goes, Chock's love for cooking was something he'd inherited from his grandmother, a wise and no-nonsense woman who could whip up a meal from anything in the pantry. It wasn't long before Chock was spending weekends in her cozy kitchen, nestled deep in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. While his peers were out playing ball or hanging around town, Chock was learning the secrets of seasoning, simmering, and savoring life's simplest pleasures, all while perched on a rickety wooden stool next to his grandma. His Chock-O-Noodle dish was born during one such lazy summer afternoon. Legend has it that after an especially grueling day of helping around the house, Chock was starving. He rummaged through the pantry, but all that stared back at him was a lonely pack of noodles, a small block of cheddar cheese, and a jar of peanut butter. "Well, let's see what you can make of that," Grandma quipped, watching him with a glint in her eye. And thus, the famous Chock-O-Noodle was born, an unlikely combination of tender noodles, sharp cheese, and creamy peanut butter, all pulled together by Chock's special blend of spices and flair. Years later, standing in front of a camera for the Golden Bachelorette, Chock was now a seasoned bachelor and amateur chef. His love for the kitchen had grown, and his Chock-O-Noodle recipe had evolved into something legendary, a dish that could charm anyone, much like the man himself. One evening, as the group of hopeful suitors sat around waiting for the next activity, Chock took charge of the kitchen, offering to make his famous recipe for the ladies and the fellow men vying for the heart of their golden bachelorette. Ingredients: 12 ounces, egg noodles, 2 tablespoons butter, 1 cup shredded sharp cheddar cheese, 2 tablespoons creamy peanut butter, 1/2 teaspoon smoked paprika, 1/4 teaspoon cayenne pepper, 1/4 cup chopped scallions, 2 cloves garlic, minced, salt and pepper to taste, a splash of milk or cream for extra creaminess, a sprinkle of crushed peanuts, optional for garnish, a whole lot of love, and some good conversation. Instructions. With his signature grin, Chock began boiling the water for the noodles, tossing in a hefty pinch of salt as the pot began to bubble. As he stood at the stove, Chock regaled the group with stories of his grandmother's kitchen, how he'd first learned to cook, and how this dish had become his go-to for impressing friends and family alike. The golden ladies around the table leaned in, enchanted not only by the smell wafting from the pot, but by Chock's stories of family, love, and laughter. After the noodles were cooked to a perfect al dente, Chock drained them and set them aside. He then reached for the butter, tossing it into a hot pan and letting it melt into a golden pool. As the butter sizzled, he threw in the minced garlic, the aroma filling the room almost immediately. The garlic began to brown, and Chock added in the smoked paprika and cayenne pepper, stirring the mixture as it bubbled. The kitchen was alive with warmth, the rich smell of butter, garlic, and spices teasing the senses. Next came the peanut butter, a strange addition to some but an essential part of what made Chock-O-Noodles so unforgettable. Chock stirred it in carefully, watching as it melted into the buttery garlic sauce, thickening into a creamy, nutty mixture. With a wink, he added a splash of milk, just enough to make the sauce silky and smooth, before tossing in the cheddar cheese. "You gotta add the cheese slowly, like love," Chock explained, a sly smile playing on his lips. "Too fast, and it'll get clumpy." He wanted to melt just right, smooth, and creamy. The cheddar began to melt into the sauce, transforming it into a luscious, golden mixture that clung to the wooden spoon in thick ribbons. The noodles, now drained and slightly cooled, were tossed back into the pan, and Chock folded them into the cheesy, peanut buttery sauce. It was a strange combination, but one that worked, the rich peanut butter complementing the sharpness of the cheddar and the warmth of the spices. For the final touch, Chock sprinkled the chopped scallions over the noodles, adding a bright, fresh bite to the dish. He finished it off with a handful of crushed peanuts for a bit of texture, offering a playful crunch with every bite. With the dish complete, Chock gathered everyone around the table. The first forkful was met with silence, followed quickly by murmurs of surprise and delight. The ladies, who had been skeptical of the peanut butter cheese combination, were now nodding appreciatively, the creamy sauce and tender noodles dancing on their taste buds. Even the other men couldn't help but be impressed. "Chock, you've got some magic in those hands," one of them said, leaning in for another bite. Chock, ever humble, just shrugged with a grin. "It's all about the love you put into it. Cooking is like life. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it's got to come from the heart." As the evening drew on, the group sat around the table, the plates of Chock-O-Noodles long empty, but the conversation and laughter flowing freely. The golden bachelorette, who had been watching Chock all night, smiled warmly at him from across the table. "Chock, you've got more than just a recipe here. You've got heart," she said softly, her eyes twinkling. And in that moment, Chock realized that, much like his Chock-O-Noodles, it was the unexpected combinations in life that made things truly special.